My name is Maya Johnson. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm in love with your son.
Joon-ho had exactly 3 seconds to decide between the woman he loves and protecting his family.
Joon-ho, sit down. Think about what you're doing.
Father, stop. She has every right.
The apartment door opened, and Maya's smile died on her lips. Joon-ho stood there, dressed in a crisp white button-down she'd never seen before, his hair styled differently than it had been in their video calls. Behind him, voices spoke rapid Korean, the sounds of dinner being prepared. Laughter, family. "Can I help you?" he said in English, his face a perfect mask of polite confusion. Maya's suitcase handle slipped from her fingers. The bag hit the hallway floor with a thud that echoed off the narrow walls of the Seoul apartment building. 23 hours of travel, 2 flights, a taxi ride through unfamiliar streets, with an address written on a piece of paper she'd folded and unfolded so many times, the creases had started to tear. All of it, to see this man open a door and look at her like she was a stranger, selling something he didn't want to buy. "Joon-ho," she whispered, searching his eyes for recognition, for warmth, for anything that resembled the man who had told her 3 nights ago that he couldn't wait to hold her again. "It's me." His expression didn't change. "I think you have the wrong apartment." From behind him, a woman's voice called out in Korean. Joon-ho glanced back, then returned his attention to Maya with the same pleasant, detached politeness a hotel clerk might offer. "I'm sorry," he said. "I can't help you." The door closed. Maya stood in the hallway, staring at the number on the door. 402. The same number he'd given her. The same building. The same floor. Her phone was still in her jacket pocket, the last text message from him still glowing on the screen when she checked it in the taxi. "Can't wait to see you soon." Counting the days. That had been yesterday. What she didn't know yet was that behind that door, Joon-ho was pressing his back against the wood, his hands shaking, his mother demanding to know who had been at the door. What she couldn't see was the way his younger sister Mina had gone silent at the dining table, her chopsticks frozen halfway to her mouth, because she had glimpsed Maya's face for just a moment before Joon-ho blocked the view. What Maya couldn't hear was his father's voice, sharp and commanding, telling him to come sit down and finish his meal. And what she absolutely could not have understood in that moment, standing alone in a foreign hallway with her heart breaking into pieces she wasn't sure how to gather, was that this wasn't rejection at all. It was something far more complicated. If you're watching this from somewhere in the world, drop a comment and let me know where you are right now. And if you already feel the weight of this moment, if you sense there's more beneath the surface, hit that subscribe button and the like icon, because this story is just beginning to unfold, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Maya's legs felt unsteady. She reached for the wall, her palm flat against the cool concrete, and tried to make sense of what had just happened. 3 months ago, she had been living her ordinary life in Atlanta, working double shifts at the hospital, coming home to an empty apartment, scrolling through social media before falling asleep alone. Then Joon-ho had sent her a message. It started innocently enough, a comment on one of her photos, then a direct message, then hours of conversation that stretched late into the night, the time difference meaning he was starting his day in Seoul while she was ending hers in Georgia. He was studying international business. She was a nurse. He loved photography. She loved books. Simple things that somehow felt profound when shared across an ocean. The first video call happened 2 weeks after that initial message. Maya had spent an hour getting ready, changing outfits 3 times, before settling on a simple blue sweater that brought out her eyes. When his face appeared on her screen, she felt something shift inside her chest. He was beautiful, in a way that made her catch her breath, but it was more than that. The way he listened when she talked, the way he laughed at her terrible jokes, the way he remembered small details she'd mentioned days earlier. "I wish I could show you Seoul," he had said during their 4th call, his face softly lit by morning light streaming through his window. "There's this place near the river where the cherry blossoms bloom in spring. I think you'd love it." "Maybe someday," Maya had replied, not really believing it would happen. But the calls continued, every night for her, every morning for him. They talked about everything and nothing, their families, their dreams, their fears. Maya found herself looking forward to those conversations more than anything else in her day. She would rush home from work, shower, and settle into her favorite chair with her laptop, waiting for his face to appear on her screen. "I have something to tell you," he had said 3 weeks ago, his expression more serious than usual. Maya's heart had stuttered. This was where he would tell her about someone else, about how this had all been fun but wasn't real, about how the distance made everything impossible. "I've been thinking about this for a while," he continued, running a hand through his dark hair. "I want to meet you, in person. Joon-ho, I know it's crazy. I know we live in different worlds, but Maya, what I feel for you, it's real. And I think you feel it too." She did. God help her, she did. Somewhere between their late-night conversations and early morning texts, she had fallen completely, hopelessly in love with this man she'd never touched, never held, never even breathed the same air as. It terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. "My parents are going out of town next week," he had said. "Business trip to Japan. If you could come to Seoul," the words hung between them, loaded with possibility and danger. "I can't just fly to Korea," Maya had said, even as part of her was already checking flight prices on another tab. "Why not?" "Because it's insane. Because I barely know you. Because what if? What if what? What if this isn't what we think it is?" Joon-ho had leaned closer to his camera, his dark eyes intense and earnest. "Then we'll know. But Maya, what if it is? What if we're missing out on something incredible because we're too scared to take a chance?" She had booked the flight that night. Now, standing in this hallway with her suitcase and her shattered expectations, Maya wondered if she had made the biggest mistake of her life. She pulled out her phone and scrolled back through their recent messages, looking for clues she might have missed. 3 days ago, "I can't stop thinking about you." 2 days ago, "My parents' flight got delayed. They leave tomorrow instead of today. Can't wait for you to get here." Yesterday, "Can't wait to see you soon." Counting the days. This morning, radio silence. Maya tried calling his number. It went straight to voicemail. She tried texting. "I'm here. Are you okay?" The message showed as delivered, but not read. Footsteps echoed in the stairwell. Maya grabbed her suitcase and moved toward the elevator, not wanting whoever was coming to see her standing outside apartment 402, looking lost and heartbroken. The metal doors opened with a mechanical ding, and she stepped inside, pressing the button for the ground floor. In the lobby, she pulled up the address again on her phone. Maybe she had gotten it wrong. Maybe there were 2 buildings with the same address. Maybe... "Excuse me," she said to the elderly man sitting behind the front desk. "Do you speak English?" He nodded slowly. "I'm looking for Park Joon-ho, apartment 402? The man's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. He glanced toward the elevator, then back at Maya. "You are friend?" "Yes, yes." "Ah." He said something in Korean under his breath, shaking his head. Then he looked at Maya with something that might have been sympathy. "Family visiting today. Very important day." "Important how?" But the man had already turned back to his newspaper, dismissing her with the universal body language of someone who had said more than they should have. Maya stood in the lobby for a long moment, pieces of a puzzle she didn't understand scattered around her. Family visiting? Important day. The way Joon-ho had looked at her, like she was a complete stranger. The woman's voice calling from inside the apartment. The fact that his parents were supposed to be in Japan. Her phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Coffee shop on the corner. 10 minutes. Come alone. Maya stared at the screen. The message had come from a Korean number she didn't recognize. She looked around the lobby, suddenly aware that she was in a foreign country where she didn't speak the language, didn't know the customs, didn't know who to trust. Every instinct told her not to meet some unknown person who had somehow gotten her phone number. But as she stood there, another text arrived. "I know why Joon-ho pretended not to know you. If you want answers, you'll come." Maya's hands were shaking as she typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately, Someone who cares about what happens to both of you. She looked through the glass doors of the building toward the street corner. There was indeed a coffee shop there, its windows glowing warm against the Seoul evening. People walked by on the sidewalk, couples holding hands, families with children, everyone living their normal lives while Maya's world tilted sideways. Another message. You flew halfway around the world for him. Don't you want to know why he couldn't even acknowledge you exist? Maya shouldered her purse and walked toward the door. Whatever was happening, whatever game was being played, she was already in it whether she wanted to be or not. The coffee shop was a 5-minute walk. She would get her answers, and then she would decide whether to fight for this or book the next flight home. What she didn't know was that from the window of apartment 402, Joon-ho was watching her cross the street, his sister Mina standing beside him. "You have to tell her," Mina whispered in English, the language they used when they didn't want their parents to understand. "She flew here for you." "I can't," Joon-ho said, his voice raw. "You know what father said. You know what's at stake. So you'll just let her think you don't care?" Joon-ho closed his eyes. "It's better if she hates me than if she knows the truth." But Mina was already reaching for her phone, because someone needed to tell Maya what was really happening. Someone needed to explain why the man she loved had been forced to choose between her and everything else that mattered in his life. And someone needed to warn her that by coming to Seoul, she had just walked into the middle of a family secret that could destroy more lives than just her own. The coffee shop smelled like roasted beans and something sweet Maya couldn't identify. She pushed through the glass door, scanning the interior for someone who might be waiting for her. Small tables filled the space, most occupied by young people with laptops and older couples sharing pastries. Korean pop music played softly from hidden speakers. "Maya?" She turned toward the voice and found herself looking at a young woman who could have been Joon-ho's sister. Same dark eyes, same delicate bone structure, but where his face had been a mask of polite indifference an hour ago, hers was filled with nervous energy. "You're Mina," Maya said. It wasn't a question. "Sit, please." Mina gestured toward a corner table. "We don't have much time before someone notices I'm gone." Maya remained standing. "You're the one who sent those messages." "Yes." "How did you get my number?" Mina's cheeks flushed. "Joon-ho's phone. I saw your messages. I saw how much you care about him. And yet he acted like he'd never seen me before in his life. Because if he didn't, our father would disown him." The words came out in a rush, as if Mina had been holding them back for too long. "Please, sit. Let me explain." Maya pulled out the chair across from Mina, but didn't relax into it. "I'm listening." Mina glanced toward the window, then back at Maya. "What did Joon-ho tell you about our family? That your parents were traveling? That you were close? That they were traditional but kind?" Maya paused. "That he loved them, but sometimes felt suffocated by their expectations." "Traditional." Mina laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's one way to put it. Did he tell you about the arranged marriage?" The words hit Maya like cold water. "What?" "Soo-jin, the daughter of my father's business partner. They've been planning the engagement for 2 years. The families have been friends since before Joon-ho and I were born. Her father owns half the shipping companies in Busan. The marriage would secure both families' fortunes for the next generation." Maya felt the chair arms under her palms, solid and real, while everything else spun. "He never mentioned," because he was going to break it off. "He's been fighting with our parents for months, refusing to meet her, refusing to discuss wedding dates. Our father threatened to cut him off financially, to disown him completely. But Joon-ho didn't care. He said he'd rather work in a convenience store for the rest of his life than marry someone he didn't love." "Then why?" "Because yesterday, Soo-jin's father died." The words hung in the air between them. Maya heard the coffee machine hissing steam behind the counter, heard conversation in Korean at nearby tables, heard the distant sound of traffic outside. But all of it felt muffled, as if she were underwater. "Heart attack," Mina continued. "Sudden. He was only 52. His shipping company is worth millions, but without a male heir, without family connections to help navigate the transition." She shook her head. "Soo-jin's mother called our parents this morning, crying, desperate. The company will fold without support. Hundreds of people will lose their jobs. I don't understand what this has to do with. The marriage contract isn't just about two people anymore. It's about saving an entire business, protecting hundreds of families who depend on those jobs. And if Joon-ho refuses to honor the engagement now, after her father's death. Mina met Maya's eyes. Our father made it clear that he would consider it an unforgivable betrayal, not just of the family, but of their friendship, of his word, of everything he believes about honor and duty. Maya sat back in her chair. So when I showed up, the worst possible timing. Soo-jin and her mother arrived this morning for an emergency family meeting. They're upstairs right now, discussing the wedding timeline, the merger details, the financial arrangements that will save her father's company. Mina's voice dropped to a whisper. When you knocked on that door, Joon-ho had exactly 3 seconds to decide between acknowledging the woman he loves and protecting his family from a scandal that would destroy everything. He chose his family. He chose to protect you. Mina leaned forward across the table. Maya, you have no idea what our father is like when he's angry, what he's capable of when someone threatens his plans. If he had seen you, if he had understood who you were and what you meant to Joon-ho, what would he have done? Mina hesitated. My father has connections throughout Seoul. Business connections, political connections. He could make your life very difficult. He could ensure you never got another visa to enter Korea. He could... She stopped herself. Let's just say he protects what he considers his property very aggressively. His property? His children? His business? His reputation? In his mind, Joon-ho's marriage to Soo-jin has already been decided. You're an obstacle to be removed. Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. And Joon-ho knows this? Joon-ho has been protecting you for months without you even knowing it. Every time our father asked about his love life, every time marriage came up in conversation, Joon-ho deflected, changed the subject, made excuses. He never told our parents about you because he knew what would happen. But he invited me here because he thought he had more time, because he thought our parents would be in Japan and you two could figure out a plan together, because he's 24 years old and in love, and sometimes love makes us believe impossible things are possible. Mina's voice softened. He didn't know about Soo-jin's father. He didn't know they would arrive early. He didn't know that today would be the day everything fell apart. Maya stared into her coffee cup, watching the steam rise and dissipate. Where is he now? Upstairs, listening to our father discuss wedding venues while Soo-jin's mother cries and plans her daughter's future, pretending to be interested in catering options while his heart breaks, nodding when they talk about honeymoon destinations and children and the life he's going to live with someone else. And he's just going to accept it? What choice does he have? If he refuses, Soo-jin's family business collapses. If he rebels, our father disowns him and destroys any chance he has of building a life for himself in Korea. If he runs away with you, Mina paused. Well, that's assuming you even want him anymore after today. Maya looked up sharply. What do you mean? I mean you flew halfway around the world for someone who pretended not to know you. I mean you're sitting in a coffee shop getting second-hand explanations from his sister instead of hearing the truth from him. I mean that most women would have already booked a flight home. I'm not most women. I hoped you weren't. Mina smiled for the first time since Maya had sat down. Because Joon-ho is going to need someone extraordinary to get through what's coming. What's coming? Before Mina could answer, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her face went pale. They're looking for me. I have to get back before... Before what? Before my father realizes I've been talking to you. Mina stood quickly, gathering her purse. Maya, listen to me carefully. Joon-ho doesn't know I'm here. He doesn't know I contacted you. As far as he knows, you got his message loud and clear, and you're probably already on your way back to Atlanta. But I'm not. No, you're not. Which means we have a chance to fix this. Mina leaned down closer to Maya. But it's going to require you to trust someone you just met, and do something that could backfire spectacularly. I'm listening. Tomorrow night, there's a formal dinner. Both families, announcing the engagement officially. All of Seoul's business elite will be there. It's being held at the Lotte Hotel downtown, the ballroom on the 15th floor. Mina paused. Soo-jin has never met you. She has no idea you exist, and my parents don't know what you look like. Maya felt her pulse quicken. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that sometimes the only way to save someone is to walk into the fire and create a bigger one. Mina, room 1247 at the Marriott. Key card will be at the front desk under the name Sarah Kim. Everything you'll need will be in the closet. Mina was already moving toward the door. 8 o'clock tomorrow night. Formal wear. And Maya? Yes? Once you walk into that ballroom, there's no going back for any of us. If you're feeling the weight of this impossible choice, if your heart is racing with the same intensity Maya's is right now, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what you think she should do. Because this story is about to take a turn that changes everything, and I want to know if you're brave enough to follow where it leads. Mina disappeared into the Seoul evening, leaving Maya alone with a decision that felt too big for one person to carry. She pulled out her phone and stared at Joon-ho's contact information. Part of her wanted to call him, to demand explanations, to force him to choose between his family's expectations and their love story. But another part of her understood something that made her chest ache with recognition. He had chosen her. Not in the way she had expected, not in the way that felt good in the moment, but he had chosen her safety over his own happiness. He had protected her from a situation she hadn't even known existed. Maya thought about her own family back in Atlanta, her mother, who had sacrificed her dreams to raise 3 children alone after Maya's father left. Her younger brother, who was struggling with addiction and needed every bit of support the family could provide. Her grandmother, who had taught Maya that love wasn't just about feeling good, but about making hard choices that served something bigger than your own immediate desires. What would she have done in Joon-ho's position? If her family's financial security hung in the balance, if her actions could save or destroy dozens of other families, would she have found the courage to throw it all away for love? Maya wasn't sure, and that uncertainty made her understand Joon-ho's choice in a way that hurt and healed at the same time. She stood up from the coffee shop table and walked outside into the Seoul night. The city stretched around her, millions of lights marking millions of lives, millions of stories she would never know. Somewhere up there, in apartment 402, Joon-ho was sitting through conversations about a future that felt like a prison. Somewhere else in the city, Soo-jin was probably mourning her father while being told about the marriage that would save her family's legacy. And tomorrow night, Maya could walk into a ballroom and destroy it all. Or she could get on a plane and pretend this week had never happened. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "How's Seoul, baby girl? Send pictures." Maya stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "It's complicated, Mom, but maybe that's okay." She started walking toward the Marriott Hotel, not because she had made her decision, but because she needed to see what tools Mina had left for her. She needed to understand exactly what walking into that ballroom would mean before she committed to a plan that could ruin multiple lives. The hotel lobby was all marble and gold, the kind of place Maya had only seen in movies. She approached the front desk with her heart hammering against her ribs. "I'm here to pick up a key card for Sarah Kim." The desk clerk smiled and handed her an envelope. "Room 1247, elevator bank to your right. Have a wonderful evening." In the elevator, Maya opened the envelope. Along with the key card, there was a handwritten note. "Whatever you decide, know that my brother has never loved anyone the way he loves you." And sometimes love means being brave enough to fight when fighting seems impossible. Room 1247 was bigger than Maya's apartment back home. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over Seoul's skyline, the city glittering like scattered diamonds. But what made Maya stop breathing was what hung in the closet. A black evening gown that would fit her perfectly, shoes in her exact size, a small jewelry box containing pearl earrings and a delicate necklace, and on the dresser, a folder containing what looked like detailed information about every person who would be at tomorrow night's dinner. Maya opened the folder and began to read. Guest list, seating chart, background information on the key players, and at the bottom, a single sheet of paper with 2 phone numbers. The first was labeled, "If you decide to go home." The second, if you decide to stay and fight. Maya sat on the bed and looked out at the Seoul skyline. In 12 hours, she would have to choose between the safe path and the one that led into unknown territory with unknown consequences. But as she sat there, surrounded by the evidence of how much Mina believed in her, how much Joon-ho had risked just by loving her, Maya realized she had already started making her choice the moment she booked that first flight to Seoul. She just needed to find the courage to finish what she had started. Maya woke before dawn, her internal clock still fighting the 13-hour time difference. Seoul was beginning to stir outside her hotel window, early commuters moving like shadows through the pre-dawn gray. She had dreamed of Joon-ho's face, but not the polite stranger who had closed the door on her yesterday. The man from their video calls, the one who had listened to her talk about her worst day at the hospital and somehow made her feel less alone in the world. She reached for her phone, 5:23 a.m. Seoul time, which meant 4:23 p.m. yesterday in Atlanta. Her shift would be starting at the hospital. Other nurses would be taking care of her patients, covering her responsibilities, living the life she had temporarily abandoned to chase something that might not even exist. The folder Mina had left contained more than guest lists and seating charts. As Maya spread the pages across the hotel bed, she began to understand the true scope of what she was walking into. The Park family wasn't just wealthy. They were connected to shipping companies, technology firms, real estate developments across 3 countries. Joon-ho's father, Park Sung-min, sat on the boards of organizations that controlled billions in assets. And Soo-jin's family company wasn't just any business. It was the primary shipping contractor for half the technology exports coming out of South Korea. Their bankruptcy wouldn't just affect a few hundred jobs. It would create a ripple effect through the entire regional economy. Maya found herself staring at a photograph tucked into the folder. Soo-jin at some charity event, smiling beside what must have been her father. She was beautiful in the way Korean actresses were beautiful. Delicate features and perfect posture. But what struck Maya was the sadness in her eyes, even as she smiled for the camera. This was taken months before her father's death, yet she already looked like someone carrying weight she was too young to bear. Her phone rang. Unknown Korean number. Hello? Maya, it's Mina. Are you awake? Yes. Good. We need to talk. Can you meet me at Namsan Tower in an hour? Take the cable car up. I'll be waiting at the top. Mina, what's... The line went dead. Maya dressed quickly and made her way across the city. Seoul's public transportation was efficient in a way that made Atlanta's system look chaotic. She found herself on the cable car ascending Namsan Tower as the sun finally broke through the morning clouds, painting the city in gold and amber light. Mina was waiting by the observation deck, but she wasn't alone. A man in his 50s stood beside her, wearing an expensive coat and the kind of calculated confidence that came with decades of making difficult decisions. Maya, Mina said, her voice tight with nervousness. This is my uncle. My father's younger brother. The man stepped forward and extended his hand. Park Jin-woo, and you are the woman who has turned my family upside down without even trying. Maya shook his hand cautiously. I'm not trying to turn anything upside down. No, but you have. Jin-woo gestured toward the city spread below them. My brother called me at midnight last night, very upset, very confused. It seems Joon-ho has been acting strangely for months, distracted during family meetings, resistant to discussions about his future. And yesterday, during what should have been a straightforward conversation about wedding preparations, he excused himself to the bathroom and didn't return for 20 minutes. I don't understand why you're telling me this. Because when he finally came back, he had been crying. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She thought of Joon-ho's face when he opened that apartment door, the perfect mask of polite confusion. She had been so focused on her own hurt that she hadn't looked deeper, hadn't seen what it must have cost him to maintain that performance. My nephew has never cried in front of the family, Jin-woo continued. Not when he broke his arm falling from a tree, not when his childhood dog died, not when our grandmother passed away last year. But yesterday, something broke him. Mina stepped closer to Maya. Uncle Jin-woo knows about you. I told him everything. You had no right to... She had every right, Jin-woo interrupted. Because unlike my brother, I believe love should not be sacrificed for convenience. And because there are things about this engagement that Joon-ho doesn't know. Maya felt her pulse quicken. What things? Jin-woo looked out over the city for a long moment before answering. Soo-jin is pregnant. The observation deck seemed to tilt around Maya. She gripped the railing to steady herself. What? 3 months. The father is someone she met while studying in London. A British graduate student with no money, no family connections, no ability to save her father's company or provide for their child according to Korean social expectations. Does Joon-ho know? No one knows except Soo-jin, her mother, and now the three of us. Soo-jin's mother shared this information with my brother yesterday evening, after you had already disrupted their family meeting. She's hoping that marriage to Joon-ho will provide cover for the pregnancy, allow Soo-jin to claim the child as his. Maya's hands were shaking. This is insane. You're talking about fraud, about forcing Joon-ho into marriage based on a lie. I'm talking about the reality of what happens when traditional expectations collide with modern choices, Jin-woo said. Soo-jin made a mistake. Her father died before she could figure out how to handle the consequences. Her mother is panicking, trying to save her daughter's reputation and her husband's business with one strategic marriage. And your brother is going along with this? My brother doesn't know about the pregnancy. He thinks he's saving hundreds of jobs and honoring a decades-old friendship. He has no idea he's being maneuvered into a situation that will destroy his son's life. Mina moved to Maya's other side. That's why we need your help, not just to save Joon-ho's happiness, but to save him from being trapped in a marriage built on lies. Maya stared at them both. What exactly are you asking me to do? Tonight, at the engagement dinner, Soo-jin's mother plans to announce the pregnancy as wonderful news, a sign that the families are truly meant to be connected. She'll claim Soo-jin is carrying Joon-ho's child, evidence of their deep love and commitment. But they've barely spent time together. Traditional families don't ask too many questions about timeline when there's this much money and reputation at stake. My brother will be so focused on the business implications and social expectations that he won't think to question the dates. Maya felt sick. So Joon-ho will be trapped into marriage by a child that isn't his, and no one will tell him the truth? Not unless someone intervenes, Jin-woo said quietly. Not unless someone who loves him enough is willing to walk into that ballroom and disrupt everything. The city sprawled beneath them, millions of people living their lives, making their choices, trying to balance love and duty and survival. Maya thought about her own grandmother's advice. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to let someone sacrifice themselves for other people's mistakes. What would happen to Soo-jin if the truth comes out? Jin-woo's expression softened. She would face social judgment, yes, but she's 23 years old and brilliant. Her father left her money in trust funds that her mother can't access. She could finish her education, raise her child, build a life on her own terms if she chose to. And the company would probably fail. But Maya, companies fail every day. People find other jobs, start new businesses, adapt to change. What doesn't recover is a life lived in service to other people's lives. Mina reached for Maya's hand. I know what we're asking is enormous. I know it's not fair to put this on you. But Joon-ho loves you in a way that comes once in a lifetime. And you flew halfway around the world for him. That kind of love deserves a chance to fight for itself. Maya closed her eyes and felt the soul wind on her face. When she opened them again, both Mina and Jin-woo were watching her with expressions that held hope and fear in equal measure. If I do this, Maya said slowly, if I walk into that ballroom tonight, what exactly is the plan? We tell the truth, Jin-woo said simply. All of it. About you and Joon-ho. About the real father of Soo-jin's baby. About the lies that are about to trap two young people in a marriage that will make them both miserable. And then what? Then we find out what kind of people we really are when everything we thought we knew falls apart. Maya looked out over Seoul one more time, this city that had become the backdrop for the most important decision of her life. Somewhere down there, Joon-ho was preparing for an engagement dinner that would seal his fate. Somewhere else, Soo-jin was probably crying in private, knowing she was about to destroy an innocent man's life to save her own reputation. "Okay," Maya said, the word coming out stronger than she felt. "But I need to know everything. Every detail about tonight, every person who will be there, every possible way this could go wrong. Because if I'm going to blow up your family's life, I'm going to do it right." Jinwoo smiled, and for the first time, Maya could see the resemblance between him and Joon-ho. "I was hoping you would say that." As they rode the cable car back down into the city, Mina explained the evening's schedule. Cocktail hour at 7, dinner at 8, the official engagement announcement at 9:30. Maya would arrive separately, using credentials Jinwoo would provide to get past hotel security. She would wait until the moment when Soo-jin's mother stood to make her announcement about the pregnancy, and then I stand up and tell everyone who I am? Then you stand up and tell everyone who you are, Mina confirmed. And you give Joon-ho the choice no one else is willing to give him. If you're watching this and your heart is pounding with the same intensity Maya feels right now, if you're invested in whether love can triumph over impossible circumstances, hit that like button and tell me in the comments what you think is going to happen next. Because we're about to enter the most dangerous part of this story, where everything Maya and Joon-ho have built together will either survive or shatter completely. That afternoon, Maya returned to her hotel room and began to transform herself into someone who could walk into the most exclusive ballroom in Seoul and command attention. The dress Mina had provided fit perfectly, elegant black silk that made Maya feel powerful and vulnerable at the same time. The pearl jewelry was subtle enough to suggest good taste, expensive enough to indicate she belonged in rooms where business empires were discussed over champagne. But as she applied makeup and arranged her hair, Maya found herself thinking about the last conversation she'd had with her mother before leaving Atlanta. "Baby, you sure about this?" her mother had asked, watching Maya pack. "Flying all the way to Korea for some man you met online? He's not some man, Mom. He's what? Someone you think you love? Baby girl, I thought I loved your father too, right up until the day he decided his freedom was more important than his family." Maya had stopped folding clothes and looked at her mother. "This is different." "How do you know?" "Because he sees me, really sees me. Not just the parts that are convenient or easy, or that make him feel good about himself. He sees all of me, and loves me anyway." Her mother had been quiet for a long moment. Then she'd said something that Maya was only now beginning to understand. "That kind of love is worth fighting for, baby girl. But make sure you're fighting for it with someone who's willing to fight just as hard for you." Now, standing in front of a Seoul hotel mirror wearing an evening gown that cost more than she made in a month, Maya wondered if she was about to find out exactly how hard Joon-ho was willing to fight. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jinwoo. "Car will pick you up at 7:45. Driver knows where to take you. Remember, once you walk through those doors, everything changes." Maya typed back, "I'm ready." But as she sent the message, she realized that nobody could be ready for what was about to happen. She was about to walk into a room full of people who had never heard her name and announce that she was in love with a man they expected to watch get engaged to someone else. She was about to expose secrets that could destroy reputations, end careers, and reshape multiple families. And she was about to find out whether the love story she had been living for the past 3 months was strong enough to survive the real world. At 7:43, Maya's phone rang one last time before she would turn it off for the evening. Joon-ho's number. Her finger hovered over the answer button. Part of her wanted to hear his voice, to give him a chance to explain, to tell her he was sorry for yesterday. But another part of her knew that if she answered, if she heard him apologize or try to say goodbye, she might lose the courage to do what needed to be done. Maya declined the call and turned off her phone. 2 minutes later, a black car pulled up outside the Marriott Hotel, and Maya walked toward the most important evening of her life. The Lotte Hotel's 15th floor ballroom was everything Maya had imagined, and worse. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in cream silk, each setting adorned with orchids that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. Men in perfectly tailored suits spoke in low voices about market fluctuations and political connections, while women in designer gowns navigated conversations about charity galas and private school admissions with the precision of diplomats. Maya entered through a service corridor, following Jin-woo's detailed instructions. Hotel staff moved efficiently around her, carrying champagne and adjusting floral arrangements, too focused on their tasks to question her presence. She had learned years ago, working in a hospital, that if you moved with purpose and belonged to the environment, most people assumed you had every right to be there. Through the ballroom's main entrance, she could see the receiving line. Joon-ho stood beside his parents, shaking hands and accepting congratulations from guests who had come to celebrate his engagement to a woman he barely knew. He wore a black tuxedo that made him look older, more formal than the man Maya had fallen in love with through late-night video calls. But even from across the room, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his smile never quite reached his eyes. Soo-jin stood beside him, radiant in white silk that emphasized her delicate frame. She was smaller than Maya had expected, more fragile-looking, and as Maya watched her interact with guests, she realized something that made her chest ache with unexpected sympathy. Soo-jin looked as trapped as Joon-ho did. Her smiles were just as forced, her laughter just as hollow. This wasn't a woman celebrating her engagement. This was a woman going through the motions of a performance she had never wanted to give. "She's beautiful," said a quiet voice beside Maya. Maya turned to find Mina approaching with a champagne flute, dressed in midnight blue that made her look elegant and sophisticated beyond her years. "She is," Maya agreed, because denying it would have been pointless. "She's also miserable. Has been since she arrived yesterday." Mina handed Maya the champagne. "Her mother keeps coaching her on what to say, how to stand, when to laugh. Soo-jin hasn't had a genuine moment since she walked through our door. That doesn't make what's happening right. No, it doesn't. But it makes it more complicated than any of us wanted it to be." Maya sipped the champagne and watched Joon-ho guide Soo-jin toward their table at the center of the ballroom. His hand rested on the small of her back with the courtesy of a stranger. No intimacy, no connection. When she stumbled slightly on her heels, he steadied her with the automatic politeness of someone helping a tourist with directions. "How long until the announcement?" 20 minutes, maybe 30 if the speeches run long." Mina checked her watch. "Uncle Jin-woo is going to create a distraction near the kitchen entrance when it's time. That's when you move toward the front of the room." Maya's hands were shaking slightly. She set down the champagne flute before she could drop it. "Mina, what if this destroys everything? What if I ruin both their lives instead of saving them?" "Then at least they'll be ruined by the truth instead of by lies." Before Maya could respond, the sound of a spoon against crystal filled the ballroom. Park Sung-min, Joon-ho's father, stood at the head table, commanding attention with the natural authority of someone accustomed to being heard. "Friends, family, honored guests," he began in accented but perfect English, "tonight we gather to celebrate not just the union of two young people, but the joining of two families whose friendship spans generations." Maya felt her pulse quicken. This was it. The evening was beginning. "My son Joon-ho has grown into a man I am proud to call my heir, my successor, my greatest achievement, and tonight, he takes the next step in becoming the leader our family businesses need for the future." Maya watched Joon-ho's face during his father's speech. He nodded at the appropriate moments, smiled when guests looked his way, played the part of the dutiful son perfectly. But Maya knew him well enough to see the subtle signs of distress. The way he rolled his shoulders when he was anxious. The slight tightening around his eyes when he was fighting emotions he couldn't express. Sung-min continued speaking about tradition, about honor, about the importance of family alliances in securing prosperity for future generations. He talked about Soo-jin's father with genuine affection and grief, describing their friendship and business partnership in terms that made their children's marriage sound like a natural evolution of that bond. "And now," Sung-min said, raising his glass towards Soo-jin's mother, "I invite Mrs. Choi to share her thoughts on this joyous occasion." Mrs. Choi stood gracefully, her black dress elegant in its simplicity. She was a woman in her 50s who had probably been beautiful in her youth and was now handsome in the way that confidence and good tailoring could create. But Maya could see the calculation behind her warm smile, the way she had positioned herself for maximum impact when she delivered her announcement. "Thank you, Sung-min," Mrs. Choi began. "My husband would have been so happy to see this day. He and I often talked about how perfect Soo-jin and Joon-ho would be together, how their children would combine the best of both families." Maya's heart started racing. This was the setup, the moment before the lie that would trap Joon-ho forever. "In fact," Mrs. Choi continued, her voice growing warmer, "my husband's greatest regret was that he would not live to see his grandchildren, but perhaps—" She paused, letting anticipation build in the room. "Perhaps he will see them sooner than any of us expected." The ballroom went completely silent. Maya could see understanding dawn on several faces around the room. Sung-min looked confused, then hopeful, then delighted, as he began to grasp what was being suggested. "Mrs. Choi," he said slowly, "are you telling us—" "I'm telling you that this marriage is blessed in ways we never imagined. Soo-jin is carrying Joon-ho's child." The ballroom erupted in applause and congratulations. Guests rose to their feet, champagne glasses raised in celebration. Maya watched Joon-ho's face transform from confusion to shock to something that looked like panic. He turned to Soo-jin, who was crying now. Whether from joy or despair, Maya couldn't tell. "This is wonderful news." Sung-min's voice boomed over the applause. "A grandchild. A true joining of our families." Maya saw Joon-ho lean toward Soo-jin, saying something urgent in her ear. She shook her head quickly, tears streaming down her face. Whatever he was asking, she couldn't or wouldn't answer. This was the moment. Mrs. Choi was still speaking, still weaving the web of lies that would define the rest of Joon-ho's life. In 30 seconds, the applause would die down, toasts would be made, and the engagement would become official in front of Seoul's business elite. After that, backing out would be impossible without destroying both families' reputations. Maya stepped out of the shadows near the service entrance and began walking toward the front of the ballroom. She moved slowly, deliberately, giving people time to notice her. Conversations quieted as she passed, heads turned. By the time she reached the space between the tables and the head table where the families sat, the entire ballroom was watching her. "Excuse me," Maya said, her voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. "I believe there's been a mistake." Park Sung-min looked at her with the sharp attention of someone identifying a threat. "I'm sorry, miss, but this is a private event. If you're with the hotel staff." "I'm not with the hotel staff." Maya's voice was steady now, powered by 3 months of love and 24 hours of accumulated courage. "My name is Maya Johnson. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm in love with your son." The silence that followed was so complete, Maya could hear the air conditioning humming in the walls. She looked directly at Joon-ho, whose face had gone completely white. "Joon-ho," she said quietly, "I know why you pretended not to know me yesterday. I know about your family's expectations, and Soo-jin's situation, and the business arrangements that everyone thinks are more important than what we feel for each other." "Security," Sung-min started to say, but Maya continued speaking. "But I also know about the father of Soo-jin's baby, and I think everyone in this room deserves to know the truth before they celebrate an engagement built on lies." If you're watching this and your heart is racing the same way everyone's was in that ballroom, if you can feel the tension of this moment where everything hangs in the balance, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments whether you think Maya is doing the right thing. Because what happens next will determine not just her future with Joon-ho, but the fate of everyone in this room. Soo-jin gasped audibly and put her hand to her mouth. Mrs. Choi's face had gone from triumphant to horrified in the space of a heartbeat, but it was Joon-ho who spoke first. "Maya?" Her name came out like a prayer and a question and an apology all at once. "You shouldn't be here." "Maybe not," Maya said, still looking at him, "but I am. And now you have to decide what you're going to do about it." Sung-min found his voice. "I don't know who you are or what game you think you're playing, but you have no right to disrupt." "Father, stop." Joon-ho stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving Maya's face. "She has every right." "Joon-ho, sit down," his mother whispered urgently. "Think about what you're doing." "I am thinking about it. For the first time in months, I'm thinking clearly." Joon-ho, looked around the ballroom at the faces of family friends, business associates, people who had known him since childhood. Everyone in this room thinks they know what's best for me, what's best for my family, what's best for business and tradition and honor. He took a step toward Maya, then another. But no one has asked what I want. No one has asked what would make me happy. No one has asked if I'm in love with someone else. Joon-ho, Mrs. Choi interrupted. Think about the baby. Whose baby? Joon-ho's voice was sharp now, cutting through the pretense. Because I've never touched your daughter, Mrs. Choi. Not once. So either this is an immaculate conception, or someone is lying. Soo-jin stood abruptly, swaying slightly on her feet. Stop, she whispered, then louder. Stop. Everyone turned to look at her. She was crying openly now, her makeup ruined, her composure completely gone. The baby isn't his, she said, her voice breaking. It's not Joon-ho's baby. I've never even kissed him. The ballroom erupted in chaos. Guests began talking over each other, voices rising in shock and confusion. Mrs. Choi reached for her daughter, but Soo-jin stepped away from her. The father is someone I met in London, Soo-jin continued, her voice getting stronger as she spoke the truth. Someone I love, someone who wants to marry me and raise our child together. But my mother thought, she looked directly at Mrs. Choi. You thought it would be easier to trap an innocent man than to face the consequences of my choices. Soo-jin, please, her mother pleaded. Think about the company. Think about your reputation. I'm tired of thinking about everyone else's expectations. Soo-jin turned to Joon-ho with something that looked like relief in her eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you almost got trapped in my mother's plan. You deserve better than this. Then she looked at Maya. And you deserve better than a man who would choose duty over love. But I didn't, Joon-ho said, moving closer to Maya. I chose you. Maybe not in the way you wanted. Maybe not in a way that felt good. But Maya, I chose you. Yesterday when I pretended not to know you, I was protecting you from my father's anger. Tonight, I was going to go through with this engagement to save Soo-jin's family business. But I was never going to stop loving you. Maya felt tears she hadn't realized were falling. Then why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me think you didn't care? Because I was a coward. Because I thought I could sacrifice my happiness to solve everyone else's problems. Because I thought love meant protecting you from my family's complications instead of trusting you to face them with me. The ballroom had gone quiet again, everyone watching this private conversation play out in public. But Maya found she didn't care about the audience anymore. There was only Joon-ho, standing 3 feet away from her, finally saying the words she had flown halfway around the world to hear. I love you, he said simply. I've loved you since our 3rd video call, when you told me about your patient who died, and you cried, and I wished I could hold you. I've loved you through every conversation, every text message, every moment we've shared across the distance. And I'll love you whether you forgive me for yesterday or not. Maya looked around the ballroom one more time, at Sungmin, whose face was a mask of controlled fury, at Joon-ho's mother, who looked like her world had just collapsed, at the guests, who had come expecting to celebrate a traditional engagement, and instead witnessed the complete destruction of 2 families' carefully laid plans. I love you too, Maya said finally. But if we do this, if we choose each other right here in front of everyone, there's no going back. Your family will never forgive us. The business relationships will be ruined. Everything changes. Everything already has changed. Joon-ho reached for her hand. The question is whether we change it together or separately. Maya took his hand and felt the rightness of it, the way their fingers fit together, the same way their conversations had, the same way their dreams had aligned across continents and time zones. Together, she said. Behind them, Sung-min was already on his phone, probably calling lawyers or business partners or anyone who might be able to contain the damage to the family's reputation. Mrs. Choi was arguing with Soo-jin in rapid Korean, their voices rising above the general chaos of confused guests. But Jin-woo appeared at Maya's other side, smiling broadly. Well, he said in English, loud enough for everyone to hear, this is much better than another boring engagement dinner. Uncle, Joon-ho started to say, but Jin-woo waved him off. Your father will come around. Your mother too, eventually. Family is family, and love this strong doesn't come along often enough to waste it on pride. As they walked toward the ballroom exit together, Maya heard Soo-jin's voice calling after them. They turned to see her approaching, no longer crying, her spine straight with newfound determination. "Thank you," she said to Maya, "for being brave enough to tell the truth when the rest of us were too scared." "What will you do now?" Maya asked. Soo-jin smiled, and for the first time that evening, it looked genuine. "I'm going to call James in London and tell him he's going to be a father. Then I'm going to figure out how to run a shipping company on my own terms, instead of everyone else's." 3 months later, Maya stood in another hotel room, this one overlooking the Han River. But this time, she wasn't alone. Joon-ho emerged from the bathroom, still struggling with the buttons on his shirt. "Are you nervous?" she asked, helping him with the stubborn collar button. "Terrified," he admitted. "Your mother is intimidating on video calls. I can't imagine what she's like in person." Maya laughed. "She's going to love you, mostly because you make me happy, but also because you're brave enough to start over in Atlanta without any guarantees." "We're both starting over." "Yes, we are." The decision to build their life in Atlanta instead of Seoul hadn't been easy. Joon-ho had given up his inheritance, his position in the family business, his entire support system to be with Maya. But he had also gained something he'd never had before, the freedom to choose his own path. He was enrolled in an MBA program at Emory University, planning to start his own business importing Korean goods to American markets. Maya had returned to her job at the hospital, where her colleagues were still amazed that she had flown to Korea and returned with a fiancé. "Do you ever regret it?" Maya asked, adjusting his tie. "Everything you gave up?" Joon-ho cupped her face in his hands. "I gave up a life that was never really mine to live. What I gained was a life I actually want." If you've stayed with this story all the way to the end, if you believe in love that's worth fighting for even when the odds seem impossible, please hit that subscribe button and share this story with someone who needs to remember that the most beautiful things in life often require the biggest risks. Drop a comment and tell me the biggest lesson you learned from Maya and Joon-ho's journey, because stories like this remind us that sometimes the scariest choice is also the right one. 6 months after that, Maya received a wedding invitation in the mail. Soo-jin had married her British graduate student in a small ceremony in London, with her newborn daughter sleeping in her arms during the vows. The shipping company had been restructured and was thriving under her leadership, proving that tradition could evolve without losing its strength. And a year after their first meeting in that Seoul coffee shop, Mina visited them in Atlanta, bringing news that their father had finally started asking when he might expect to meet his son's wife officially. "He's ready to apologize," Mina told them over dinner in Maya's apartment. "Not because he thinks he was wrong, but because he misses his son more than he values his pride." Some love stories end with the kiss and the promise of happily ever after. But the truest ones continue long past the dramatic moment when everything changes, into the quiet daily choice to keep choosing each other. Maya and Joon-ho learned that love isn't just about the courage to fight for someone when the whole world seems against you. It's about the determination to build something beautiful together after you've won the right to try. And sometimes, if you're very lucky and very brave, the love you fight hardest for turns out to be the love worth building an entire life around.